Hello, beautiful. So, as you may know, I've done a couple of episodes about body image when you're in a relationship, but I haven't actually done any episodes when you're going through a breakup or you're single. So, I am very excited to introduce you to today's special guest. Known as Betrayed Bestie on Instagram, Jess is a betrayal, trauma, and breakup coach. She helps women leave unhealthy relationships and helps them to heal post betrayal, heartbreak, and to attract healthy love. Welcome, Jess, to Your Body Is Not the Problem podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, so happy you're here. To get started, do you mind telling us more about you and your body image journey, please?
Yes, so I have had a lifelong struggle with my body image, as I think a lot of women can relate to. And, in my previous marriage, although it ended in betrayal and all of that stuff, before that, it was, happy, comfortable, kind of like you get weight, it's just like you don't really think anything about it. And then suddenly, you find out that your partner was cheating on you, and it's hard not to correlate the 2, you know what I mean? Even though he, complimented and said all these things and seemed to be very accepting, and I truly think that he was. Like, I know now that it has nothing to do with how you look or anything like that, but at the time, that was, super devastating to me, and I just started disliking a lot of things about myself. And so it's really been a journey since then, and, now I feel like I'm in a much better place with my body image.
Love to hear it. Do you think is there anything that was like the biggest help to you on your body image journey?
I think just knowing that, so many women have been through this, like, you can, list so many famous, beautiful people who are, like, praised for their appearance, and, they get cheated on. Like, no one is immune to it, and so starting to take the blame off of ourselves. I read this quote that was like, "We try to find the fault within ourselves because there's a perception that we can change that." Like, if it was because we weighed a certain amount or our hair looked a certain way or what or we did our makeup in a certain way, we can change that. It's much harder to accept that some things genuinely are out of our control.
That is such a good quote. And I think that I like to use the example of like the Kardashians, that they're possibly like the most famous family, I guess. And
Mhm,
they're also possibly the most hated. And like there you can ask a lot of people and they won't find them attractive. And yet they pay so much money to fit the beauty standards, and yet they still get cheated on. They still have all of
mhm,
these normal human experiences that we think that, oh, if we could pay to change our body, if we could do whatever we need to fit those beauty standards, that they won't happen to us. But your body isn't the problem in these scenarios. So I'm
mhm.
excited for our chat and figured we can maybe break it down into three separate topics of like getting cheated on, breaking up, because that doesn't necessarily have to be that you got cheated on, and then being single. So, to start with being cheated on, what do you tell women who believe that having a quote unquote better body would have prevented being cheated on?
Yes, so a lot of the women that I work with and just in society in general, I think that porn and things like that have played such a huge role. And many men, especially, by the time they're, um, around our age, they're, in their 20s, 30s, etc., especially as they get older, many of them were exposed to that whenever they were so young. And that kind of that imprints in your brain, and they realize from a young age, like, this is something that I can turn to and it makes me feel better. And so they kind of get stunted, like, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, and, their view of women is already thwarted, and especially, like, if you've seen the advertisements for that show, Adolescence, and all of, like, what, Andrew Tate, and there's just so much misogyny and everything out there where it's, like, so easy to think that as women, like, it's us to blame, but really we're just kind of set up in a society where we're set up to fail almost, and, it's not normal in a world without porn, in a world without social media, in a world without whatever, like our great-great-grandparents, your your attraction is supposed to change as you get older. But what porn does, what these like Instagram model effects, what, all of the plastic surgery does is it freezes one standard of beauty. And so you get older, but you're conditioned to still think that that one specific type is, beautiful, attractive, all of those things. And so that's really something that's wrong in their brains, especially in the case of addiction. And it has nothing to do with you. And you could get all the procedures done in the world, but you will never be that, like, 17, 18-year-old, nor should you be. Like, you should be with
Yes.
somebody who finds you, like, appropriately attracted, you know? And our job isn't to fit into the unrealistic standards. It's to, kind of extricate ourselves and find our worth somewhere else. Appearance is just a that's an easy thing, that's an easy target, but I think it's just so much deeper than that.
The talk and discussion around porn on your social media is something I actually really appreciate because I know when my husband and I first started dating, that was a major issue. Pretty much the only issue in our relationship was the fact that I didn't want him to do that. And everyone that I talked to was like, why? Like, you're the problem. They were telling me that I was the issue here. Is that and a thumbs up. Thank you, Zoom. That I was the one that needed to change my opinions and that it was completely normal. It was completely okay. And I was like, no, I actually don't think it is. Like, and I was literally made to feel like I was crazy for it. But you're right that like it does change what they find attractive in a sense, but also like it's teaching them to objectify us. And
Absolutely, and there is something to be said about it changes the reward centers in your brain, just like how, whenever I met my ex, I wasn't really educated on the topic of porn, so I didn't really have an issue with it. I was kind of like that stereotypical cool girl, whatever. I was like, I don't care, whatever. But the kind of content that he was watching whenever we first got together versus whenever I ended the relationship, it changed drastically because just like a drug addict, you build up almost like a tolerance, and you need to do more and more and more to get high. Like you have to watch more extreme content. Whether the person wants to or not, and a lot of times they are disgusted by the things that they watch, but it's almost something it's uncontrollable. It's like a super stimulus. Our brains were not evolutionarily wired to be able to handle that.
yeah, so I guess it's like the your body in this scenario, like if you're being cheated on, it's not like you having a different body or a quote unquote better body, like who's to even decide what that better body would look like? Because it's always going to be changing. Like if you're basing it off of like beauty standards or if you're basing it off of what they might like, that's also going to be changing. Like you said, like our tastes are supposed to change and evolve with us because we shouldn't be finding people underage attractive. Let's be
Mhm.
clear about that. So I have not been in this scenario, but I feel like it'd be really easy to have the mindset of, oh, if my body was different, that I would have been able to prevent this from happening. I feel
Mhm.
like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that can also just come from like the people pleasing tendencies of like it's easier to take on the responsibility. It's easier for me to be in charge of like, oh, it was my fault. That meant that I had control over this. Whereas, like, if it's not actually a you problem and it's a them problem, you're releasing that control, which is really uncomfy.
It is, and it's so different because it is so much more personal than, especially if it's addiction based. Like there can be some blame that people put on themselves, like if their partner has a drug addiction or a gambling addiction, but the fact that it is linked to sex and this person is, really like a lustful person, and maybe it's not, they're not gambling away your money, but they're spending money on OnlyFans subscriptions and stuff like that. There's an added layer on it because, sex and things like that, that's something that you can provide in a relationship. You can't get anybody high, you're not a slot machine, you know what I mean? Like, there are just with this addiction, it's so easy to put the blame on ourselves, and, Michelle Mays, who she's the author of The Betrayal Bond, she actually talks about this, the concept of carried shame, and that is where the person who was supposed to be loyal to us and protect us and care for us, they go out and act in a way that is shameless, like, they don't feel the healthy guilt that would prevent them from acting that way in the first place, they don't feel that, and so whenever it happens to us, we take on that, like, it's carried shame, like, we think, "Well, what was wrong with us?" Whenever in reality, uh, the blame is at the start of the process, which was with the other person.
Interesting, and sorry, what was her name again, or the book?
Yes, it was Michelle Mays, and her book is called The Betrayal Bind.
The Betrayal. Interesting.
Mhm,
And so how can we, in the same realm of being cheated on, how can we change the belief that, like, we're not good enough? As if, like, if our body had been different, that, like, that's the only thing that's keeping them in the relationship kinda thing, and I feel like it also leads to the stress of being worried that if your body changes, that they're gonna leave, they're gonna cheat. So, like, how can we improve and not have our belief thinking that, like, we're not good enough, and that's why we couldn't have a faithful relationship?
mhm. So I actually like to do this with my clients because a lot of times we view everything from the focus of ourselves. So, for example, whenever you're being intimate with your partner, you're thinking, oh, does my like stomach look weird whenever we're in this position? Or, oh my gosh, I can't get on top. I look cute. It's all these different things that we tell ourselves. We have an internal dialogue, but it's always about us. But we never stop like, us being perceived by them. And so we never stop to think, "Am I enjoying this? What would feel good to me?" And it's the same thing in our relationships where it's like we say, Why wasn't I good enough? Why did this happen? What can I do to, like, prevent him from watching porn?" And, again, it's like us and we're saying how we're perceived by everybody else, but really, if you, like, take a step back and ask, like, "Actually, what does he need to do for me to feel safe in this relationship? What could he say in order to make me feel safe?" Like, do I even want even if he stopped doing all this stuff, this instant, is he really good enough? Like, is this a relationship that I really wanna be in? Because what I found is sometimes, we're insecure. Sometimes we just choose the wrong partner. We ignore red flags, so we fall for love bombing. A lot of people who have an addiction are very narcissistic, right? And so we hone in on this one area because that's where we've been hurt so badly, and that makes sense. But it's like, look at all the other areas, like, outside of this, does he provide for you? Does he get along with your family? Does he make you feel safe in other ways? Is there, like, any redeeming quality in him? Because so many times I think we're worried about us being, like, good enough for them, but are they even good enough for us? It's interesting, and I describe this as whenever you experience a betrayal like this, your entire world and your perception kind of shatters, and it's such a moment of having the rug pulled out from under you, and it's very uncomfortable, but you can take a look at the pieces of your life, like, on the floor, and you just see things so much differently, and you get to choose if you wanna pick those same pieces back up or not. Like, you can create new things. I think sometimes we think, "Oh, I've gotta restore this to how it was before," and really you don't.
I love what you said, that it's like, "Oh, we're asking the question, 'Am I good enough for them?' But flip that around, are they good enough for you? Because you deserve so much." I feel like I see so many women settling for less than the bare minimum, and I'm like, "Please stop, like, what are you doing? Like, you deserve so much, especially so much more than the bare minimum." I also wonder, though, if that could partially be influenced by porn, and the fact that I feel like a lot of that is directed towards just the male's pleasure, and I feel like even in, like, sex ed growing up, it's like, it's about the guy's pleasure. Like, there's no such thing as a girl feeling good in sex and stuff like that, so it's like, we're not taught, I think, to even think about ourselves in that regard of whether or not it could also be them not being good enough for you, but it's just focused on, "Oh, well, it's a me problem, not a them problem."
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that definitely plays a role in the way that women's pleasure is portrayed. Whenever it is, it's extremely unrealistic. And that's another thing is like I do think that the industry and a lot of people are like, "Oh, if I just looked like the porn stars, if I just looked like the strippers that he would go see, if I just looked like whatever." They are just as insecure a lot of times. Like, no woman is exempt from this, and you can think back on this too, like, in your life, because at some point, all of us pretty much were in a thinner body or, you just look back and you were like, "Oh, I thought I was fat back then." You know what I mean? And you can see, like, you didn't feel any different. I'm telling you that the majority of women are not immune to this, no matter if you think that they look perfect. And the industry really preys on insecure women, and they also prey on vulnerable women who a lot of them come from, like, broken family backgrounds, or they're only doing this for, the financial stability, or they straight up target, them, especially influencers and things like that, and they're just, like, counting down the days until they turn 18, and trying to get them on OnlyFans, and so there are in so many ways, it's a very predatory industry, and a lot of the people that you see, like, in porn, and Pornhub has been involved in many lawsuits over this, because so much of their content, it's not verified, it's not age verified, there's so much of it where people are underage, where it's not consensual, and so really something that helped me, and it helps my clients too, is to even have compassion for the women that you're comparing yourself to, and for the women that you think are, like, stealing away your man, or, like, impressing your man or whatever, because truly they have their own set of struggles as well. It's framed as empowerment, but to me, it's not.
I love the idea of trying to, like, have compassion for the other women also because, I mean, we don't like being judged ourselves, and that's us judging the other people that they would think about trying to steal your man or whatever the case may be. And, I think it's also important to remember that 9 out of 10 women don't like their body. So it's like you are not alone in those thoughts, but you also don't have to continue hating your body because your body is not the problem. The beginning of my like body image journey started was because I gained weight and then I lost all of that weight and I still didn't like my body. And then I was reflecting and I was like, oh, look at that high school version of me. I wasn't happy then. I was very insecure. I was very jealous of everyone else. And it was recognizing that that smaller body was not better. It also wasn't the problem, but I wasn't any happier in that body, and I think the society does a very good job at convincing us that that is the solution, but it definitely is not. So, moving on to just a breakup, not necessarily having been cheated on or anything, but just two people splitting up. You're maybe concerned about when you're going to get back into dating, if you're going to get back into dating, if you're just going to swear off dating altogether.
Mhm,
Um, from what I see online, though, I think a lot of people try to go for like a revenge body. And so I'm wondering what
mhm.
your thoughts are on a revenge body.
So I love that you asked me this, because I actually made a post about this a while back, because I think that intentions are everything. And I think that if you have two people who are like, one is going to the gym and she's like working out so hard and she's like trying to get her revenge body. And then you see somebody else who is still, going to the gym, but they're working out, they're trying different forms of exercise, they're having fun with it, they're exploring different forms of movement, and they notice how much more regulated their nervous system is because of that. And like they're meeting a community because they're taking group classes. You know, those two people, they may end up having such a similar body type in the end, but the person who is doing it only for revenge is going to feel significantly more miserable. Like, I think you can do the same things, but it's the intention with what you put behind it. And it's like, I just don't think that's gonna yield what you think it's gonna yield, and that end result, you're just gonna feel so much better if you tie other things and prioritize other things into whatever you're doing, rather than trying to still frame everything around this person who is no longer even in your life.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as sustainable or fun
No.
at all.
Mm-mm. No, I saw this thing, it was like, you can't hate yourself into change, and I think that's so true, because if you're doing it as an exploration, it's like you don't even care, like, if the scale goes down or anything like that, but if you're doing it in an obsessive revenge way and you're taking progress pictures and your bikini and all this stuff, you are gonna beat yourself up if you're not making the progress that you think that you're gonna make. And that's just gonna make your healing journey that much more prolonged.
Mhm. It almost is like falling into an invisible comparison trap. It's
Mhm.
like you don't know what you're supposed to or you don't know what you want to be comparing yourself to in terms of, like, who they may date after you, but you're still trying to be quote unquote better than what they could. And again, like that's not fun, that's not sustainable, and it doesn't feel good in the long term or the short term, really. So, what would be a different mindset that you would recommend for someone who is fresh out of a breakup, wants to do like move their body more? How can they do that in a healthier mindset without thinking of it as, let's get back at my ex?
I'm an information person. Like, I feel like if you tell me to do something, but you don't tell me why I should or anything like that, it's kind of like, well, I might not do it, you know? But something that really motivated me was looking at, I actually read a book, it's on my bookshelf now. It's called The Joy of Movement by Kelly McGonigal. And it really gives you all of these scientific studies and everything about how people are so much happier and they just have better health outcomes and they're able to handle life stressors and everything so much more whenever they do have some form of, consistent movement. And it's not about weight or anything like that. It's literally just about moving your body. And so that was really motivating to me, especially whenever you're going through a breakup, you're like detoxing from that person, and there is a certain like chemical dependency there. And a lot of times we are in like fight or flight, especially if it was a traumatic thing, such as in the case of betrayal. But even if it's not, like your body goes through a lot as well. And so taking care of it and like learning about different forms of movement, like I started going to yoga after my divorce and I'd never been to yoga. I was like, I don't think I'm a yoga girl. And now I love it, it's slow, it's regulating. I wouldn't necessarily recommend unless you just feel like you have so much pent-up energy, like, I don't really recommend, like, high intensity or anything like that because that can just be spike your cortisol even more and things like that, but just have a mindset of exploration and, if there's something that you wanna do, I find, like, just research it, and the information is usually, like, compelling enough, for me at least, to be like, "Oh, okay, like, there's a whole different side of this that I didn't really know about."
I love that. It's like exploring and experimenting to see what you actually enjoy. Because how often do you find that like the women you work with were also doing workouts specifically again for their partner?
So, actually, not a lot. I found that a lot of my clients were kind of complacent in their day-to-day lives, and especially whenever, like, their relationship started to go downhill, it can be extremely hard to take care of yourself, let alone, like, go out to a workout class or anything like that. So, whenever, most of them come to me, they're in a place of, like, I really want to be consistent, like, I want to have some kind of routine, like, they're craving that, and they have all of these, like, pent up emotions, and emotions are stored in the body, so it's kind of like if we're never moving that, like, you really miss out on such a big release, and so a lot of them aren't necessarily active whenever they come to me, but whenever they do think about it, they're like, "Oh, I think I need to do Zumba because I've done that before and I lost 15 pounds," and I'm like, "No." If you don't want to do Zumba, you're not gonna be very successful. You can push through for maybe a week or 2, and then you're gonna get mad at yourself because, you find yourself skipping and things like that. So, yeah, I would say that that is common.
That's fair. So, moving on to they're single, maybe thinking about dating again. And what are your tips or mindset shifts for staying confident that like who you are right now is worthy and deserving of a partner and that like you don't need to change in order to find your person?
I think just knowing that you are somebody's dream girl, like, no matter what you look like right now, like, you can go out and see, even what we don't think is beautiful on ourselves, like, that is one good part of social media, I think, is, like, you can see somebody else that has the same what you think are flaws as you, and yet you think they're totally gorgeous, and a lot of those people, like, happen to be in relationships, and you can just see that no matter your body type, like, it doesn't matter, like, you literally see people, I saw this meme today, and it was about Tammy from the Thousand Pound Sisters, and it was like she's got a new girlfriend or whatever, and somebody commented and said, "One thing about Tammy is, like, she's always gonna find a partner." You know what I mean? It's like, no matter what you look like, that is, again, the least interesting thing about you, and really flipping your mindset to, "Am I good enough to for this person to actually I'm trying to find who is the best fit for me. I'm not trying to fit into anybody else's standards." And I know that that's so much easier said than done, especially whenever you have been thinking about how you're being perceived and how you come across to other people and all of that stuff. But again, there are so many people in the world, and there are so many like, and this is, kind of gross to say, but there are even the men who do watch porn. There's like a thousands of categories out there, and they're just it's not all like Instagram model looking body types at all. Like people are just so attracted to different things.
Yeah, there are plenty of fish in the sea.
Mhm.
Love that. Okay, so what about the men who are making body comments when you're like trying to date and they are having that like shallow surface level of like counting you out even based off of how you look? How would you navigate like not feeling, I guess, defeated when you're trying to find someone and you keep coming across all of these men that are like Andrew Tate followers and stuff like that?
Yes, just know that you are so much better off being single than being with someone who has that kind of mindset, because chances are you already were with somebody who had that kind of mindset, and you can see how poorly that ended. And something that was really helpful for me was I had a non-negotiable list of like 30 things that I wanted in my next partner, and everyone said like, "Oh, that's too ambitious, like you're never going to find anybody like that." And especially in my very small southern town, I was mostly everybody, and I was like, "That's right, like, I'm not really interested in anybody, but I don't care because it's better for me to be alone than to be with a man like that." And, truthfully, I surrendered that, and my husband, like, he moved here from California. I had never met this man, it was super random that he ended up here, but I think that everything unfolds as it should, and had I clung on to any of those men who I was like, "Okay, like, I don't really like his viewpoints on that. I'm not really, feeling the best, but I can make it work." Like, I never would have met this person, and, like, I'm sure that you can think back to moments in your life where, like, you maybe didn't settle for a job that you kinda wanted, but you didn't really, or a school that was, like, your safety school, but you didn't really wanna go there. And then it ended up, you're so glad that you didn't because something even better was in store for you, though you couldn't see it at the time. But I'm just a general believer that things end up working out the way that they're supposed to.
I love that you had a list and that, like, you're never gonna get everything you want if you don't know everything you want, and, like, you're always gonna get less than what you want and that you deserve if you don't put out into the universe, like, what it is you actually want. So I love that you had a list, and I think I've seen on your social media that he also had a list?
He did. His was a little bit shorter than mine, but he did have one, and his was alphabetized. Like, we're just a perfect match. We're both very organized. We have shared spreadsheets for, like, everything in our lives, and it's just so fun. But he did. He was very picky, and, the both of us had just gotten out of 6-year relationships, and, we had taken time to be intentionally single, and I think that says a lot about a man who's not like, that's such a red flag to me if he's just, like, hopping around, or even if he doesn't have anything good to say about his ex, because, like I say, like, no person is 100% bad if they're only saying like, "Oh, yeah, my ex was crazy, she was toxic, she was whatever." Like, they should be able to think of, like, at least one good thing if they were with her for, an extended period of time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that, and another thing too about the list is I didn't tell him. Like, I wasn't like, "These are the things that I'm looking for," because again, I think some men can be very manipulative, and if you're just like, "Oh, I want somebody who this is really important to them," and he'll be like, "Yes, that is actually important to me," but he's not actually being serious, so it's kind of like vetting those things out for yourself.
Mhm.
But yeah, I wasn't I wasn't afraid to be picky. I even took a dating after divorce class and I read all of mine out and I was like, "Do y'all think that that was too much?" And they were like, "No, add more." And I was like, "Y'all are crazy. I'm already worried I won't find anybody." But sure enough, I did. Like it's just it was such a trivial worry looking back.
Well, I'm very happy for you. I
Thank
think
you.
that's just a great story in general. And aside from body image related things, do you have like 3 top tips for someone who is either like just found out that they were cheated on, freshly broken up, or single? Any category really. Your 3 best tips.
Tip number 1 is don't be so married to your vision that you are unwilling to be flexible. I think a lot of our suffering comes from the fact that, like, like a lot of us are whenever we're in a relationship, we think, no, this was supposed to be forever. We're supposed to get married. We're supposed to have kids. We're supposed to retire. We're supposed to be sitting in our rocking chairs together. Like, no, I'm not going to accept this. But the thing is, like, if your external circumstance is not changing and it's not a great environment, you are gonna wither away, and it doesn't matter if you go on to have kids with this person or get married or grow old because the problems that you have now are only going to be magnified, and so if if somebody is not changing, like, if the situation is not changing, you have to change situations. And so that would be number 1. Number 2 is, as hard as this is, I think a helpful reframe is, like, your last single era. Like, if you were married or if you were with somebody who you thought you were gonna be with forever, this is what I did. I was like, "Okay, this is my last single era. Like, what do I wanna do?" And, it is kind of nice not having to take anybody else into consideration. Like, if you wanna pack up and go to the beach one weekend, you can. If you want to have pizza rolls for dinner, you can. Or, just all these different things. If you want to go out and, like, party with your friends this weekend, you can. Like, really kind of trying to romanticize it and find even the smallest moments that bring you joy, like, having a cup of tea in the evening, watching Jersey Shore by yourself. I used to do that all the time, like, and I look back and even though I was still healing and hurting and all those things in those moments, I still look back and, like, I'm so fond of that time, like, I'm so nostalgic because I was learning how to take care of myself. And, my 3rd tip would be something that makes this journey a lot easier, I think, is having faith in something that is bigger than yourself, because whenever we put all of this on us where it's like, "Oh, I have to find this. I have to do this. I have to be this way. I have to," and, like, we're trying to control so many things that just puts so much pressure on us, and it's easy to crumble whenever really what you need in that moment is support. And so no matter what it is that you believe in, if it's like your higher self or the universe or God or whatever religion, whatever kind of spiritual, thing that you believe in, even if it's just like nature and like the interconnectedness of everybody, it helps you just feel not so alone in your struggle. And, if you look at so many even successful people in other things, rather than just breakup healing. But so many successful people and people who have overcome such hard things, a lot of times what they have in common is faith of whatever sort.
I love that. Yeah, it's like I personally believe in like the universe and it's like it's always working out for you. Like everything is happening in your favor. It's all going to be okay in the end. But I do agree that it's like it takes off that pressure that's like it's not all on you. Just like how it wasn't your fault that you got cheated on. Your body wasn't the problem in that scenario and it's like letting go of everything that we feel like we really wanna control. Like, we have a timeline for how our life is supposed to play out and stuff like that. So it's like, let go and, like, put out into the universe or again, whatever you believe in, that, like, you're gonna have your list and you're gonna get more than you deserve. You're gonna get more than the bare minimum because again, you deserve way more than the bare minimum. But I love those tips. Thank you for sharing them. Is
Of
there
course.
anything that we haven't talked about between, like, getting cheated on, going through a breakup, being single, in terms of body image that you would like to share?
I think that, just something to note is something that was really helpful for me was learning to dress for comfort rather than what I thought was in style, or I was like, I need to wear this on a date and I need to do all this stuff because whenever you're physically uncomfortable, like that people can tell based on your body language and you're not gonna feel your best at all. And so really just learning what makes you feel good, and it was really funny because my husband, whenever we first started dating, he was like, "You don't dress like most people around here." I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but he was like, "No, I think it's cute." So, like, even if it's different than, like, what other people, are dressing like or whatever, like, your comfort and your comfortability, like, with yourself, not necessarily there's so many, Instagram reels and whatever. If you have this body type, you shouldn't wear this. If you're this color season, don't wear this color. It washes you out. It does whatever. It's kind of like, no, just wear things that make you feel good, make you feel happy, and that translates. Like, I think it just magnetizes you as a person.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, amazing. So maybe if you are going through a breakup right now, or if you're not, maybe it's a great time to go through your closet, clean out some stuff, get rid of what's not fitting, what's uncomfortable, like the stuff that's like the collar's too tight, it's too tight around your arms, it's like too tight around your waist. Like actually get stuff that is comfortable. Because like you said, yeah, you're gonna if you're physically uncomfortable, you're also going to be thinking and focus on that when you're like trying to date other people. And even if you're just trying to go out on a date with yourself, like
Mhm.
be comfortable and you're gonna be so much happier. So I think that was amazing. To close out, I have two questions that I ask all of my guests. The first one is, what do you wish you could go back and tell younger Jess?
I wish I could go back and tell her that you are so much more than external things, like the clothes you wear, the number on the scale, what you have in comparison to everybody else. Like, in the end, those are not reasons why other people were going to love me. Those were not reasons why, like, I was gonna ultimately learn to love myself, and so, yeah, I really just stopped defining myself and, finding my worth in external things because, everything that's important is inside.
That is so powerful. Love it. The second question is, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out trying to learn to love their body more?
To someone who is just starting out, I think practicing self-compassion because they say the first step is awareness, but I think a lot of times whenever we become aware and, it's like you pass the mirror and you think, "Oh, I look so big in this. I'm so bloated right now." And then you snap back and you shame yourself like, why would I say that to myself?" And it's just again, it's that other layer of, judgment for your thoughts. And so practicing awareness, but then also like lovingly letting that go. And just knowing that it's normal. It's normal that you have those thoughts. We're conditioned to have those thoughts, but you don't have to hang on to them and you don't have to punish yourself for having them.
I love that compassion has come up multiple times in this episode. I think
Mhm.
that it's something that we just forget. Like, we can
Mhm.
have so much empathy and compassion for everyone else around us, but then when it comes to ourselves, we're like, no, we're our harshest critics. So I love that you said compassion. I think that is amazing. And again, just thank you so much for taking so much time out of your day today to talk with us and share all of this because I know it's going to be so helpful. For those who are interested, where can they find you and how can they work with you?
Yes, so you can find me at Betrayed Bestie on Instagram and TikTok. And I do have Betrayed Bestie Academy, which is for betrayal trauma and breakup healing. And then my one-on-one coaching is more for, like if you're still in the relationship or you're looking for that more, intensive support. So all of that can be found at the link in my bio on Instagram.
Awesome. I will also make sure to link those in the show notes below. So if you're interested, you can just scroll down and then you can click the link. And yeah, again, just thank you so much. And I think that again is not something that I've personally been able to go through. So I'm just grateful that we were able to have this conversation so that those who have been cheated on, are going through a breakup, are single and are struggling can realize that they're not alone and can get that support. And I think that, I mean, just from watching your page and then chatting today, I was like, yes, you should go check out Jess's page and see if you would be a good fit to work together. But again, just thank you so much for taking time today.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Of course. And just remember, everyone, that your body is not the problem.